Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio Station, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, Streaker, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, no K words here, no Kanye doc, formerly or now. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So I have topics and guests to that end. For the past 671 consecutive weeks, this is show podcast number 1,335 or 45. I lost count, but I'm so glad that you're here. Today is no exception. This is actually my hashtag Tuesday Talent series that I love because I get to spotlight people who are doing fabulous things in the world. And I'm just so excited to have both Stephanie Dillon Hamm and Jillian Stewart here. They are representing AAMDS, which I'm going to let Stephanie say all that in a row in a second. But it's a wonderful organization. You'll hear the story of how I hashtag not accidentally found them. I think like 3 or 4 years ago when I was Dr. Marissa broadcasting live and doing some news coverage. And I'm so delighted that I've now adopted this particular organization as one of the ones that I really want to spotlight and to share with you so that you get educated and also you have a place to help. And that's why we're here this morning. I like to start with a breakfast every morning. Y'all know that. Those of you, I see the eyeballs rolling in now, to start the day with gratitudes. The top of the bun is things that we're grateful for outside of ourselves. And the bottom of the bun, which we're going to model for you to go to bed tonight, is things that we are grateful for inside of ourselves. What do we like about ourselves? So that's how we're going to start. And then I will have you, well, let's start with that. I'm changing I haven't had enough coffee yet. So I don't have an answering machine. I have a questioning machine. And when you call me, it says, who are you and what do you want? So Stephanie Dillon Hamm, who are you and what do you want?
Calling you. Stephanie is Stephanie Hamm. I am, in this case, the co-chair of March for Marrow. We've been doing this in California since 2009. And what do I want? Each and every event to educate parents about the signs and symptoms of these rare diseases, and to meet patients who maybe, because they're rare, feel alone and lonely, even in a warm city like Long Beach. And should they ever run into Dr. Marissa Pay, just a wonderful, warm individual.
Thank you. And I will let you tell me what AAMDS stands for.
Okay, that is the two diseases, but there is a third that actually is represented by Jillian. Aplastic anemia is the lack of strong red blood cells. MDS is kind of a combination of that. just a real dysfunction of the bone marrow. And many of us are very surprised to find out that the bone marrow produces red, white blood cells and platelets. We didn't know that until this crisis erupted in our case, our children. Right. And it's an organization founded in 1983 to address these rare diseases.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And Jillian Stewart, who are you and what do you want besides, I'm going to toot her horn, every year the organization chooses a champion. So, I love celebrating things. So first of all, congratulations, Jillian, for being this year's champion.
Thank you so much. So I'm Jillian. I'm this year's champion for the AAMDS Long Beach Walk. And I am a patient. So I actually suffered from one of the three diseases that kind of AAMDS represents. One that Stephanie didn't mention is PNH. So again, a dysfunction of the bone marrow. And I had been a suffering patient for about 5 years. And I now recently received a life-saving bone marrow transplant. And so that is the reason I'm standing here today. So what I would want is, similar to Stephanie, I want to help advocate for so many patients who maybe aren't as lucky as me to have found a match on the registry, which we can get into a little later, and get that life-saving stem cell or bone marrow transplant. So I hope to help patients not feel alone, help patients find their voice, help to be kind of a teammate to their doctor in their care, and advocate for themselves so they can have a good quality of life.
Fantastic. Congratulations for the match, first of all. As you can tell, I like applause. Life is too short not to applaud, right? And celebrate those things. I'm so delighted for you. And I'm just so honored to have both of you on. I'm so fortunate. I'll start with that. My gratitude is that I have this platform for way more than the year that they thought I would last. I was told that any show that did not talk about the headlines, did not do any political ranting, did not do gossip and scandal would not last more than a year. Well, 12.8 years later, I'm still here and I get to, be honored with people who really are making a difference on the planet and shining light to areas of temporary darkness. So thank you for honoring me with your visit. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the platform. I'm grateful for this morning coffee. I will say that I love my morning coffee, and I'm going to be one with my coffee right now as Stephanie goes to, what are you grateful for?
Well, I'm grateful that you bumped into us on the beach about 3 or 4 years ago. And of course, we were kind of, but your goal, your philosophy is just really energizing. And we need that in this period. But also we need that as patients and family members with rare diseases. And Jillian hasn't said the name of hers. I don't know that I pronounce it right, but paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria.
Wow. So, don't say that fast 3 times. Not possible. We'll be here all day.
PNH.
Yes. Yes. And Jillian, what are you grateful for?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm grateful that Stephanie said the name because even though I've had this disease for so long, it's a tongue twister and it's as complicated as it sounds.
Mhm.
But I'm also so grateful, obviously, that you are allowing us to be on your show today to be able to speak about these rare diseases because it's not every day that you hear about these things.
Mhm.
And also, I'm just grateful to be here and to be in good health because there were so many days where um, I was in the hospital. I was getting a blood transfusion. I was getting an infusion. I was getting chemo prior to receiving my transplant.
Mhm.
Um, and there's just a lot of things that we take for granted in life. Just being able to go outside into the fresh air. And so I'm just thankful to be sitting here, thankful to be talking, and thankful to just be alive.
Yay.
Mhm.
Definitely wonderful. Let's go to the bottom of the bun. I do this particularly because I want us to take responsibility for our own mental health. My honorable moniker is Asian Oprah. I was introduced to Oprah as the Asian Oprah, and I credit her with bringing attention to the mainstream to be able to talk about mental health, to be able to really be honest that the outside that we see sometimes on social media isn't really what's happening inside. Unfortunately, a lot of people, in addressing their own mental health, are going outside of themselves, looking for people, places, and drugs, or some kind of something, not pharmaceutical. Well, maybe pharmaceutical too, but something outside of themselves to make them feel better. And because I'm on a happy 88 mission, 88 million more happy people in the next 8 years, I want us to do the most that we can to exercise the muscle of self care, self love, and self approval, which I believe are the foundations of good mental health. And so we do this exercise every morning so that when you go to bed tonight, we've modeled for you things to think about instead of thinking about who done me wrong, what I didn't get done right. I'm my own worst critic. All of that keeps us from sleeping. Just saying. You can replace that with things like, I appreciate that I have the gift of gab. And if I didn't have it, I certainly wouldn't be a good broadcaster or a news reporter or red carpet interviewer or show host and producer. So I appreciate my ability to talk often and much. So I'm not always good. 88% of the time, it's fabulous. 12% of the time, I step in it. But I want to go to bed um, comforting myself and knowing that even if someone says I talk too much, I will say, probably true 12% of the time, but I am grateful. I appreciate who I am and my ability to do that. So that's kind of the vein that I'd like you to follow. Let's go to Jillian. What do you like about yourself?
Yeah, I would say, as I mentioned, I was battling this rare disease for 5 years. I think I was 19 when I was diagnosed, so it has kind of taken up a lot of my, um, I think, most monumental years of trying to like become an adult and become a woman and find myself. And um, I'm really proud of myself for how I've kind of just remained strong and persisted, even when it felt like the odds were against me. I keep things lighthearted. I try to find um, laughter in the horrible moments because that's the only way that I really feel like I keep going and keep moving forward. So even in the times where, like I said, things were extremely hard, I still found it in myself to push forward and find good things, even though it felt like there was a lot of bad that surrounded me. So
Beautiful, beautiful. There's a show right there. That's, we don't need to say anything else, really. You are so beautiful. I mean, you look like, I love your smile, but you're a very high vibrator. You've got a lot of positive healing energy. I feel it around you, and I'm just so glad that I got to meet you. And really, you are poster child for how to move through difficult times, as a patient. And I think that that's your special sauce. Your superpower is that you can absolutely say, I know how you feel. And that's a little 1 minute soapbox. Is I believe, this whole idea that bad things only happen to bad people. Why do bad things happen to good people? It's like, hello, bad things happen to everybody because it's a chance to grow. It's a chance to expand. It's a chance to chisel ourselves into, the magnificence that we all are, and to give us that special skill and ability to help other people. So you got it. You understand that. And I'm so glad. All right, Stephanie, what are you good at? I mean, the list goes on. This woman, I don't know how she does everything she does, because she's ageless, but she's not a spring chicken. So, Stephanie, what do you like about yourself?
Well, in this case, that I've been given the opportunity to make a change in, a small change in an environment that we went through as a family, in a small Texas town in the north. Nobody knew what this was. And understanding, oh my gosh, I don't want any mother, any wife, any sister, to have to go through this without the information. And that's what I feel that Aplastic Anemia and MDS International provide.
Yeah.
And, Dr. Pei, when Garrett first got sick, we didn't even think about a bone marrow transplant. But later on, when he had lost every other option, we actually went to Christine's Match in Northern California. It was an Asian group that was looking for matches for their people, because there's a distinct difference between us. And then it became Asians for Miracle Matches. Now it's joined in with the national organization. But seeing what they were doing as Asians of many different cultures, but with that DNA that's different, they were working so hard with their people. And I was inspired by that. I was inspired by the fact that nonprofits need money. So thinking of a way to shine a light and also maybe bring some much needed funding to these organizations.
Yes. And Stephanie is really good at shining the light, and also quite humble. So, and I think part of it is she's from the generation of don't toot your own horn, and you're not all that. But I do want to present both of you before we get any further with Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award, which doesn't go to everybody, but for all the work that you're doing to really help in this area. All right. And that's it for breakfast. Thanks for joining us. I hope that you will, with or without me, I'm here every weekday morning live at 9 Pacific time to have breakfast with you. So this is a good life habit, a hashtag Blisscipline, that if you adopt, I promise you, you will sandwich your day in the most positive way. Thanks for joining us for breakfast. And now for the topic of the day, even though we've already kind of launched all through it, we gave you like a synopsis. Today's topic is AAMDS, and then however you say your Jillian's PNH, I think it was, or something like that. And the March for Marrow, that is our topic today. And please continue to welcome and enjoy my very special guests live this morning, Stephanie Dillon Hamm and Jillian Stewart. And we are, I'll start with the story, because I think this is, even though it'll probably make me cry, 3 or 4, I don't even know, time flies, right, Stephanie? Years ago, and I still do, I cover bigger stories now, but 4 years ago, coming out of COVID, I was a broadcast journalist and also a news reporter that did some freelance work for a New York news agency, and they put on my call sheet to go down to the Long Beach Shoreline Village, which is right. I can see it from here. And so it's an easy one to cover. And they said it was a march for, they said it was some kind of a race, and it was a march for Marrow. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but I went down and bumped into Stephanie and interviewed her and interviewed the champion that year. And I was like, wow, this is very cool. This is really needed. And I'm learning so much. And they raise funds, and they have people from all over the states. And I think there were a couple of international coming to run. The doctors were running, and all of these people were supporting this organization that had to do with blood related diseases. And I, covered it. And I realized towards the end that it was no accident that I was there. My own father, my Chinese dad, those of you know I have a bonus dad now, but he had lymphoma. And lymphoma is one of the blood-related diseases. So I was directed by my dad, who's still here, even though he's not in his body. I believe that people are never lost. They just go back into love. And that's his directive to highlight and meet, and now become, the next year, Stephanie was kind enough to reach out to me and say, we would love you to be the celebrity officiant and start the race, and I get to give out medals. And so it's a love affair now that I absolutely so look forward to. I planned my whole speaking trip to Toronto this year, when I also go visit my Chinese mom who has Parkinson's. I planned that so that I could come back to start the race this year. But that's the story, and how beautiful. There's no accidents. And so it is an area that people don't understand. You people hear about bone marrow transplant. People hear about white blood cells, red blood cells. So the fact that I meet Stephanie, who's going to tell us the story of her son that led her to support this organization, and now Jillian, I'm really wanting to hear. I can't even imagine a 19-year-old waking up and realizing that she was going to have to fight for her life. So that's my story. I'll shut up now. But I wanted to introduce this because there's never an accident in your life. And if you're going through something right now and you just accidentally found this, please do share it with anybody else in your community, because this is a story, no matter what your diagnosis or dis-ease is, it is not a sentence. And it is also really not who you are. You are someone that's going through it. And here today, you're going to get a plethora of encouragement in how you can move through pain with grace and with learning, and come out the other side with power and beauty as a mother, and as also the person that is experiencing it. So that's my introduction. Let's start with you, Jillian, because you definitely, this is very real to you. 19, tell me what you were doing, what your mindset was, and then what happened.
Yeah. So I was 19. I was in college at the time. I was a sophomore. And I was a busy college student. I was having a good time in college. I was in a sorority. It was finals. I was just busy. And I had kind of put my health maybe on the back burner because, again, I was having a good time. I was staying up late. I was studying. Like I said, finals, all the things that college students don't really think are affecting their body, and kind of you're taking life for granted. And so I started having a lot of weird symptoms. Again, I was discounting it as I was a college student. I probably hadn't gone to the gym in a while. I was out of shape. I was getting like numbness in my hands and legs. I was almost getting like a heartbeat sound in my ear. I was exhausted. I'd wake up in the morning after getting like 12 hours of sleep and go right back to the couch. I had severe shortness of breath. And so I went to go see my doctor, and they were like, oh, we think maybe you just have an infection. We'll do a few blood tests and we'll just send you home. So they took some blood tests, gave me some antibiotics, and I was sent home. And then that night at midnight, I got about 7 or 8 phone calls from the emergency room saying, you need to come in. Unfortunately, your blood test just went through, and your blood levels are all about 1/4 of what they should be. There's something going on. Pack a suitcase and come now. So this was at midnight. So I collected my family, my stuff, my pajamas. Again, still thinking like, oh, I probably just have an infection. I don't really know what's going on. So I was admitted to the hospital, and they ran every test under the sun, and then eventually did a bone marrow biopsy and found that I had been diagnosed with this rare blood disorder, PNH. So I didn't really fully understand the intensity of the situation, I think, until I was officially diagnosed with PNH. But then again, at that time, I was told from my doctor, you are young, you're healthy, you're going to be okay. I have a medication that works for this disease, which was an infusion, kind of like a form of a chemo. It was an immunosuppressant. And so they said, we'll get you started on it this week. I have another patient who is over 60, and it works for them. So usually this should be a good response. So I started this treatment. It wasn't working week after week. I was going to get an infusion, and then the next week I would get a blood transfusion, an infusion, a blood transfusion. And so ultimately we decided that that wasn't an option, and I was going to go through with a bone marrow transplant. When we decided I was going to go through with a bone marrow transplant, it was actually COVID. COVID had just begun. And so again, I was 19 at the time, so I was no longer a pediatric patient, which really bit me in the butt there, because they were like, you cannot bring anyone with you to the hospital. No one can come in your room. For those that don't know, a bone marrow transplant entails a lot. You'll be in the hospital for at least a month. So I couldn't fathom the fact that I would be alone in the hospital for a month without anyone. So at the extent of fixing my physical health, my family and I were like, we're going to completely destroy your mental health by leaving you in there isolated and alone. So my doctor and my family and I decided we were going to hold off on the transplant to kind of see what happened with COVID. Obviously, COVID didn't really let up for a little while. So it was a longer wait than we anticipated. But in the meantime, the FDA approved a new medication for PNH. So I started on that medication. Soon after starting, it completely changed my life. I got to graduate college. I didn't need a blood transfusion. I got a full-time job. I moved out of my parents' house. I was traveling. It was amazing. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
And again, it was a new medication, so there wasn't much long-term data, but unfortunately, after about 3 years, it stopped working just suddenly. So again, I was back in that same position, square one. What are we going to do? I was out of options. So this was in November of 2023 when it stopped working. At that point, again, my only option was now to go through with a transplant. So they searched the unrelated donor registry to find me a match, because in order to go through with the transplant, I needed a donor. And so my sister wasn't a match. They searched the unrelated donor registry and found one match on the registry for me. I was so lucky.
Yeah.
And, another thing I have to add about finding the match is you may have a match on the registry, but your life kind of lies on that person saying yes to going through with the information.
Right.
So you don't know when they join the registry, if they're going to change their mind, if they're no longer interested in donating, where they are in their life, all of these things.
Right.
And so thankfully, I'm so lucky. My donor said yes. And she agreed to the date of donation. And so I received my life-saving bone marrow transplant on February 21st, just this past year. So I
Wow.
just celebrated my rebirth day, which is when I was born again, thanks to her bone marrow that is now residing in me. All I know is she was a 30-year-old female, and she lives somewhere in Europe. So we've been able to exchange an anonymous letter. But she's the only reason I'm here today. So her cells like their new home. I'm happy to say I no longer have PNH. I recently got a test and it was not detected. So I'm thankful. I'm so lucky, and I know so many people aren't as lucky as me. So I feel like, as you said, there's no accidents or coincidences. I genuinely believe that I got this disease and had to go through the hardest of hard things to help people, maybe who don't have as big of a voice as I do, to advocate for them, to tell them to keep asking your doctor, I want a better quality of life. What can we do to get there? Kind of my story.
Wow.
I rambled on for a little while, but it's a long one.
Wow. My heart is so wide open right now. That is just amazing. Like so many things. I was like, I could have applauded like every sentence there. So first and foremost, congratulations. The fact that you don't have it anymore. I took a quick peek at the statistics like I like to do and use my assistant Google during the show. The frequency is only 500 a year in the States. So that's like, like the fact that they even know about this, I'm like kind of, because when my dad, it took my dad, this was back in, he passed in 2000. So in 1999, it took them 7 months to diagnose his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. 7 months. So the fact that you were able to, like they diagnosed it, they were pretty proactive. Unfortunately, this didn't work. Then it worked sometime. Your emotions must be like this. You are honed to be resilient. I mean, you're the poster child, I think, of resilience as a patient, and to not ever give up. And then to have someone in Europe, right? Not even in the States. And so my first call to action for everybody, if you're listening to this now or later and you feel like your life sucks, or, what's the whole point of life, and, all that bullshit talkie that might be going through your head if you're having a bad day, go register at the donor registry, because you can do that. And if it doesn't, I don't think, I don't know, the risk or whatever, it's kind of like kidney, donating a kidney or donating your blood, right? It's something we can all do, right?
Yeah. Do you mind if I jump in just real fast?
Please.
So it's different from donating a kidney or liver. Joining the registry, you actually aren't even asked to donate anything unless you match with a patient, which is really hard to do because it's based on DNA. So the likelihood of you matching with a patient is slim. But if you do match with a patient, that's when you're asked to donate one of two ways. 90% of the time, it's a stem cell donation. So similar to donating platelets or plasma. It's regenerative. So again, not like donating a kidney or liver. Your body will regenerate marrow and stem cells. And then the other thing I wanted to add to join the registry through NMDP, your listeners can actually text join now to 61474, and then it will send you a link to their cell phone, and they can go ahead and register through there, and they'll actually send a swab kit to their house to do the 10-second cheek swab. And then the postage is already paid for. So they'll just stick it back in the mail. So it's really simple and easy. So sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to.
No, please do cut me off. What's the number again?
Yeah, it's join, JOIN now, one word, to 61474.
614. I'm putting it in the chat so we have it. I'm going to do that right now as well, and get a kit. I meant to do it before, and I haven't had I have really good memory, but my recall sucks. So it was something that I forgot to do. But here we go on the. Okay, did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So thank you for that clarification. You do regenerate. So there really is no reason at all not to do this. It's you're going to give hope to somebody. You can always change your mind, but I know you're not going to change your mind, so that we can really help a lot of different people. And specifically, I'm going to go back to what Stephanie said. I was very, very happy, #Asian Pride, to be able to mention something particularly for Asians. And no wonder you're so beautiful. I forgot you're a Hapa like my daughters. So you are actually half Asian, right? Did I get that right, Jillian? Or is somebody else?
No, not me, but maybe
Oh,
Stephanie.
Not you. Okay, Stephanie
were you talking about? You were talking about someone who was searching for a match, right? Who was half Asian.
Well, our son was Thai.
Oh, right, Garrett. Okay, let's go to your story. Let's go. Good segue. Good segue. So let's move to now. This story. This is an incredible story, not just because Stephanie and her son Garrett, but you may notice. It took me like 2 years to figure out your relation to Mia Hamm. Somebody I've been working with this woman, and the last name's the same, but I'm a little slow on the uptake when it comes to name recognition. And to come to find out that your son's sister is Mia Hamm, and she's the greatest of all time in soccer, and she's just an amazing young woman. And if her schedule would have permitted, she would have been here on the show as well. And one of these years we'll get her, but she's working on something that I'm going to play in a minute after we hear Stephanie's story on how did you get involved, that you knew that you wanted to support this organization, Stephanie?
Well, we had 4 daughters, and they were including Mia, all have done wonderful things, including having our beautiful grandchildren, whom I love. But we decided, I kind of told my husband, I don't know how many times I want to have a baby and have it, not be a son for you. And plus, I grew up in a large family, and I loved my brothers. There were 6 girls and 5 boys. And my brothers, they just brought that something to the family. So we adopted Garrett, who was 8, and Martin, who was actually a baby, and he's visiting us right now. And Garrett was part Thai and part Caucasian. And so when he was diagnosed, it definitely required somebody with some DNA that was from the Asian population. And so that's how I ended up. I may mess up the name. I said Christine's Match, but it may have been Christine's Angels or something like that. But it was a wonderful relationship they were working on in San Francisco, in the Northern California area, getting people into the National Marrow Donor Program who were of Asian descent. And then I found also Asians for Miracle Matches. Now, both of those organizations have folded into the National Marrow Donor Program, which is kind of the way it is worldwide. There are international marrow registries, and they cross over. They work very hard because, you want to provide a solution to everybody's issues, and especially when they could end up in death. So we went that route. Garrett, he was 8 years old when he came. He was this kid. I mean, he had been going through this, being in a children's home, wanting to be with his father or his mother, and it just didn't work out over and over again for him. At 8, he ran up to us when we went to the children's home and he said, I help the little kids make their beds every morning. And you know, he never helped anybody make a bed after but he was a great, because the responsibility was taken off his 8-year-old's shoulders. And he was very active. He ran out the door. I remember one time we were living on base. My husband is Air Force, or former Air Force. And he grabbed Garrett and he said, hey, this is your home. It's not a hotel. Spend a little time with us. But anyway, he was 16 when he was diagnosed. I hope I'm answering your question, Marissa.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
We were stationed in Wichita Falls, Texas Bill was an instructor pilot, and ended up as an instructor pilot for the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training. That is a European group of nations that come to this small town in North Texas to instruct their students in flying particular planes. And Garrett was very active. Oh my gosh, he was everywhere. Like Mia said in an interview, which I thought was, this was something I had never realized. She said, this boy came into our family and he got a bike, so I got a bike. He didn't have a bike, but anyway. He got a skateboard, so I got a skateboard. And he took her every place he went because she always had this innate ability to understand how a ball moves through the air. And, whatever, there he is in Thailand. Isn't he adorable?
Adorable.
Oh my gosh, yummy. Anyway, they created a real bond around sports. And he was very close to all his sisters. But anyway, at 16, he was practicing football. It was 117 for 2 weeks in Wichita Falls. So they had these cut off tops. And it was a miracle. You said nothing happens. I mean, I know not everything happens for everybody, but there was a parent on the sidelines, a woman doctor, and she saw these bruises developing up his back. And she went to the coach and said, Coach, get Garrett Hamm off the field until his parents have him see a doctor.
Wow.
So she talked to us, and he needed to see a hematologist, and he was diagnosed first with oh gosh, I'm sorry.
It doesn't
a kind of a blood cancer.
Right.
And it wasn't, they didn't even say the word bone marrow failure diseases. And so he was put on prednisone and for about 3 years, and he went into remission. And we were very happy for him, but he wasn't happy because he wanted to play sports and he was a liability. He was actually being kind of scouted by the Texas Rangers already at 16, but that went away. And his dream of playing professional sports went away. He went to college in Texas, and then he transferred to a college in Long Beach State. And he studied kind of hotel management, recreation management, and he loved it. He loved it out there. Long Beach is actually my birthplace. So, and my mother lived in Malibu. So he really enjoyed it. But then one day he had no more, Jillian, no more energy. He just kind of collapsed. And his sister was at UCLA. So he called her and she raced to where he was, put him in the car, took him to UCLA emergency room. And he never got well. He just never got well. He lived on blood transfusions, a couple of medications, but he just had. And when he went to the Olympics, you know, I put him and his little boy and his partner upstairs. Well, he couldn't get up the stairs. And this is a kid that used to play football, basketball, you know, you name it, he could play it. And he played it. And it just was so hard to see him. And then finally, he had had a wonderful experience going to National Institutes of Health. That's where he got one of the best treatments. And he was treated like a king, which is what patients need. They need to have this lift. And so Dr. Neil Young, who was his doctor at NIH and is still, I think, the resident expert in this and other blood diseases, and which, by the way, he started his career in this, Dr. Pei, in Thailand. The Prince of Thailand called him because his daughter had some strange thing happening.
Wow.
And he went over and took care of it. And that lit his flame. And he has continued to be. But anyway, he told us after the Olympics, we had a meeting, and he said, Garrett, you're going to have a bone marrow transplant. Of course, we were not any of us a match. He said, well, I know how to get in touch with my father, and who was Caucasian. And he was a half match, although he kind of denied paternity. That wasn't real helpful, but he was a match. He definitely was a half match, which is a high risk transplant. He had that done at Richland Memorial Hospital under Dr. Oh gosh, I'll remember her name, but I can see her face. She dealt in high risk transplant. And his partner, Sherilyn, wonderful, loving young woman, and I and his child, Dylan, who is now 30 and about to get married.
Wow.
Well, we stayed with him. He was transplanted on Valentine's Day, and he passed away on April 16th. Wow. But not from a failed transplant. It was not a real strong reaction, but it was from an aspergillus fungal infection. And, you know, first, let me back up a little bit, because we knew nothing. And the doctors didn't know much more until I walked into his oncologist office and I saw this slim card with our logo of a blood drop, the old one. And I said, Doctor, is this what Garrett has? And he said, well, maybe. Well, maybe. You know.
Right.
So, and Dr. Pei, in Orange County, there's still this kind of nebulous treatment. I mean, it's like, well, maybe, and no, time is of the essence.
Yeah.
So he did pass away.
I'm sorry for your loss, Stephanie. I know that it's painful every time you do the start of the race, and you know, obviously you talk about it to inspire hope and also just represent the heart of the parent and how difficult it is. And that's why for you to turn around. You don't have to do everything that you do to help with this organization, but certainly everyone I know that I've met through you and this whole, annual fundraiser, which we're going to invite you to, all of y'all. If you're anywhere near Long Beach and you like to run, or even if you don't like to run, if you need to lose a little weight and run or train for anything, please do go to the AAMDS. They're on Facebook and they're also on the internet so that you can sign up. This year it is April the 26th, I believe.
Correct.
Saturday, because I fly back on the 25th. And it's down in Shoreline Village. Just as an easy registration. She's already got the wear there. There's a fabulous silent auction. I have my number one bestseller always there as a signed copy for you to bid on, and then I get to shoot the gun and hang the neck. So but it's truly a worthy event, and to honor, come meet Stephanie, come celebrate with Jillian. I think there's so many ways in which we can support not just people. It's wonderful to see the patients. I don't know, do we have enough time? I wanted just to show kind of a little preview as well as highlight what Mia's doing these days. You had mentioned that she is doing work around post bone marrow transplant, that there's some issues that come up that people are not necessarily aware of after the bone marrow happens. So I thought I was going to be able to do this easily. Obviously not. So, but please go to my social, Doc Balance, Dr. Marissa, everywhere else. There's a little clip that gives you a little preview of the race and also what Mia is doing right now, because I think that's truly important. But Jillian, we're almost out of time. I knew it was going to go fast. Is there anything that you want to share with us that has not already been covered, or something you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think I briefly touched on this before, but if I could give anyone advice, regardless if you're battling PNH, aplastic anemia, MDS, I think just any chronic illness, I found it really important to, as I said, become like a teammate with my doctor. I think a lot of the time, patients, which is exactly how I was at the beginning, just kind of sit back and are like, okay, if that's, okay, you said this medication is going to work, and then maybe you're still not feeling that great. Just being able to advocate for yourself, use the internet. Obviously, AAMDS was a huge resource for me to come across and find different medications that were kind of coming down the pipeline that were about to be approved by the FDA. And I had no problem sending them to my doctor through my portal and the messages and be like, I found this, I found this, I found this. He had his hands full, definitely, with me as a patient. But just being able to advocate for yourself and remember that you don't have to settle for maybe a treatment that you're on if your quality of life is really not that good. So I think just remembering this is your life, and the only person that's going to be able to feel the way I feel for the rest of my life is me. So don't be afraid to speak up for yourself and make it better for not only you, but for others. And I think that's really important.
Dr. Pei, if I can add, Jillian is now working for the National Marrow Donor Program, which just recently was Be the Match. People know it as Be the Match. However, it kind of turned into a dating service. People would call, oh, Be the Match. So they changed back to the formal name of NMDP.
Yeah,
got it. Got it. That's hilarious. Okay. I found it. I'm going to just show this because I think that what Mia is working on right now is also quite important. Let's see if I can get it to play. Is that showing? Do we see it?
Yep.
Okay, good. Here we go. Let's see. Where's the sound? Oh, Lord. Here we go.
I'm standing in the company of greatness. Everyone you see here has been through more than most people can imagine. A cancer diagnosis, then a bone marrow transplant, followed by the added challenge of developing graft versus host disease, also known as GVHD. GVHD is a condition where the new donor cells from the transplant attack the recipient's body while attempting to cure their cancer. People living with GVHD can face debilitating symptoms, and watching out for new or changing symptoms can feel like a 24/7 commitment. Fighting GVHD takes everything you've got, and often just a little bit more. Tia's love for dance gave her strength during her journey with cancer, bone marrow transplant, and now GVHD. Her high energy and optimism helped her stay on top of her GVHD symptoms and drives her to motivate those around her to stay on top of their health too. For Brad, his GVHD symptoms showed up less than 2 weeks after his bone marrow transplant. Since then, he's been extra vigilant because he knows how quickly a small symptom can become a big problem. He tells people with GVHD to never hesitate to ask a question or raise a concern. Ananya is an inspiration to her family and also the high school chemistry students she teaches. She developed GVHD shortly after graduating college and has boldly tackled this challenge. She's as tough as they come and wholly committed to staying on top of her symptoms. Loriana has been a force in the GVHD community for years. She's a pro at managing chronic symptoms and has inspired thousands by sharing her experience living with GVHD around the country. Although GVHD is different for everybody, living with it isn't easy for anybody. And the people you see here have all done the hard work of challenging GVHD head on. Hey, if sports heroes get the trading card treatment, we think these actual heroes should too.
And here they are. Here she is.
But all diseases caused by unknown reasons.
People, it's all about balance. Peace in. Peace out. Peace out. World peace. World peace. Through inner peace. Now go and support AAMDS.
All right. That was a little preview promo. Here is the website itself. And we see our beloved Stephanie on the front there. Is that you, Jillian?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. A little bit likeness, but not exactly the same. But this is what you have. And don't try to say this quickly 3 times. But yes, it's a great website that has all kinds of resources. And I hear you loud and clear. You know, the Jillian saying it's great to have medical advice, but you know, you are your number one advocate, and to use your disease or your diagnosis to develop. You know, anytime bad stuff happens to me, my after I react to it and go, then I say, I can't wait to see what good comes out of this. And what is this situation asking me to develop? What new quality, skill, and ability? And that's what you've done, Jillian. Thank you so much for being here. Stephanie, it's always great to have you here. And thanks for including me in this really fabulous cause. I will see you March 26th in Shoreline Village. Oh, sorry, April 26th at Shoreline Village for the race. You saw me do it with everybody last year. It's all about balance. If you could do this with me, it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live from my living room. Thanks so much for joining us this morning for this incredible show and education. Thank you so much, Jillian and Stephanie. Now go and have the best day ever. We'll see you tomorrow.